Hi everybody, Brian McNichols here once again from touringplans.com, and we are still continuing with our Harry Potter film rewatch. If you are watching this later on Facebook or on YouTube, we are doing these live on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/touringplans. We do them every other week or so, give or take. We are up to The Prisoner of Azkaban, which was the third book and film in the Harry Potter series. I'm just kind of stalling for the moment until my co-host Angela jumps on here. As always, we will do our best to not spoil anything past what we are watching. So if you are new to the series, you can follow along with us. So we will obviously spoil what happens in Prison of Azkaban, but nothing further. Hi, Angela. How are you?
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
I just realized I didn't put my headphones in. So go ahead. Talk for a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm a little late. I actually had to finish the movie this morning. It's been just a crazy week. And as you can tell, are you guys suffering from allergies? I'm allergic to tree pollen, and apparently so is my son, which we're now figuring out because like his eyes are puffy and his nose is just constantly like full of boogers. So yeah, my voice is a little raspy. Good morning, Dee. Hello to Dawn. Hello to Kate. Well, thank you for joining us. Yeah, so I finished the movie this morning. And of course, like the pivotal moment at the end between Sirius and Harry, my son has this like electric drill for toddlers and it's like going super loud right next to my ear. So I'm like, well, I guess I don't get to hear that. Like, good thing I've seen this movie a million times.
Yeah, this one we're still up to where I've seen all of these pretty often. Of course, and especially if for some reason you're starting with this one and haven't seen our other Harry Potter rewatches. I'm a big book fan, so I reread the books usually at least once a year. But the movies I'm not as familiar with. But now actually my daughter has been really getting into them, so we've been rewatching the movies. So with her, we're up to Order of the Phoenix, the fifth movie, but with this, we're still in the third. So I'm jumping back and forth a lot with the movies, which is a very strange thing going, Harry keeps aging up and then going back down.
Well, and with my daughter, she's 4, but she started watching the first movie with me, and she's like, I want to watch more Harry Potter. But these movies get scarier.
They do, starting with this one, yeah.
I know, and she's 4, and so I don't want her to keep watching them with me because she's little, but she keeps wanting to watch Harry Potter. So I'm like, well, do I just keep turning on the first one for her and like hope she doesn't notice that they go back to being little again? Or do I just fast forward and watch the scary parts later? But I mean, at any rate, this book was my favorite for different reasons that we'll get into. So I was really excited to watch the movie. So yeah, we'll talk about that a little later. Let's go back to the comments a little bit. Dee watched the movie on Tuesday, so she was like way ahead of the game, more so than me. I started it, I think, the day we did our Facebook Live a couple weeks ago, and they just finished it this morning. And a couple people have joined us, a few people that I know. So hello, friends of mine. Hello, Heather from Denver, and hello, Paula. Hello, Karen. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. So, Brian, I know what you're going to say, so I'll let you go.
No, go ahead. No,
okay.
I'm not sure what I was going to say either. I was figuring it out. Yeah, usually that's how it works.
I will say that we put out a new podcast episode. We were kind of on a hiatus for a little bit for different reasons, mainly being busy with work and sicknesses and everything, but we do have a new podcast episode that we will link below at some point. And it's a good one. It's about planning a last-minute trip to Walt Disney World and if it can be done successfully. So if you have not checked that out, please do so. Hi, Tracy. She's my jiu-jitsu bestie.
Oh,
hi.
Nice.
So, and another jiu-jitsu friend joined. Hello. So, yeah, so check that out if you haven't.
Harley says that her mom started letting her read the books around 5 or 6, and she's turned out okay. I think I have a cousin who read the books to her daughter when she was fairly young. I don't remember the age, but I think it just depends whether, like my kids, before we went to Universal 2 years ago, we had them watch the first 2 movies, and they got a little freaked out by the basilisk at the end of Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah.
So then we kind of stopped. We said, well, if that's too much for you, you're not going to like Dementors or, when Voldemort comes back. Spoiler alert.
Brian, you just ruined it.
I know, not really a spoiler. He's been kind of back for forever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not sure. People are apparently racing like ATVs around my street or something. I don't know why. They're making a terrible noise. Hopefully my microphone's not picking up a ton of that, but
it's okay. My kids are like running around downstairs in the basement.
Well, that will be mine. That will be me for the next. That's actually why we're doing this at an odd time. My kids, this is their last week of school, and they get out at noon. Yes. So I couldn't really do this anytime around noon because I have to get them. So we opted for early in the morning. Sorry to our West Coast viewers because they're either not watching or up quite early.
But we will be posting these onto YouTube. So
Always, yes.
If you miss us, they go onto YouTube, so you can comment there, and we do respond to comments on our YouTube channel as well. So if you miss us here, it'll be there.
All right. So should we start with recapping the plot as best we can? This one actually is I feel like a more straightforward plot than some of the others, despite the fact that it goes backwards at one point.
Yeah, and I think that they assume that like after the first two movies, you'll probably have read the books or like enough about the backstory that they can just go right into the movie. Because like Brian said,
it starts very quickly. Yeah,
they just like go right into it, basically.
All right.
Yeah.
So here is what happens in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We start at the Dursleys once again and are introduced to Vernon's sister Marge, who actually is not quite as nice as her brother, which is saying a lot. Aunt Marge insults Harry's parents very cruelly, I might add. Harry loses control, causing her to literally expand and float away. Harry flees with his luggage and accidentally summons the night bus, which is transportation for witches and wizards. We'll talk more about the night bus soon. It delivers Harry to the Leaky Cauldron. We'll also talk more about that. He is forgiven by the Minister of Magic for doing his accidental magic, which seems odd to Harry and us at the time. After reuniting with his best friends Ron and Hermione, Harry learns that Sirius Black, a convicted supporter of the Dark Wizard Voldemort, the Voldemort, of course, is the one who murdered Harry's parents, not married Harry's parents. That would have been much sweeter. And Sirius Black has escaped Azkaban prison, the first one to do so, intending to kill Harry.
So Harry and his best friends, Ron and Hermione, they go to Hogwarts on the Hogwarts Express, which is their train, and Dementors, which are these really creepy little beings that look like skeletons, are really creepy. They board the train looking for Sirius Black, and when they enter Harry's compartment, they cause Harry to pass out. And so the new defense against the dark arts teacher, which is Professor Lupin, Remus Lupin, he repels the Dementors with a Patronus charm. So at Hogwarts, the headmaster, which is Albus Dumbledore, he announces that the Dementors will be guarding the school while Sirius Black is at large, blah, blah, blah. And what happens is that Hagrid, who's one of my favorite characters, is announced as a new teacher. He's a new professor. Care of Magical Creatures professor is his class title. His first class goes awry when Draco Malfoy deliberately provokes a hippogriff named Buckbeak, who is this big bird, basically. And Buckbeak attacks Draco, but he deserved it. Draco exaggerates his injury, and Draco's father, Lucius Malfoy, later has Buckbeak sentenced to death. I can't talk as fast as Brian. I can when I'm excited, but not right now.
Not reading plot summaries, huh?
No.
Meanwhile, the Fat Lady's portrait, the Fat Lady is the literal painting that guards the...
And that's her name.
That is her name, yes. Yeah. It is not.
It's not like Brian is saying that.
It's still demeaning, but it's what the only thing she's referred to. And her portrait is what guards the Gryffindor common room. It is found ruined and empty. Terrified and hiding in another painting, the Fat Lady tells Dumbledore that Sirius Black has entered the castle. During a stormy Quidditch match against Hufflepuff, Dementors attack Harry, causing him to fall off his broomstick. His broom is then destroyed, unfortunately. At Hogsmeade is the nearby wizarding village that we will discuss soon. There's quite a bit in this movie that shows up in theme parks, which is fun. Yeah. At Hogsmeade, Harry is shocked to learn not only has Sirius Black out to supposedly get him. He was his father's best friend and apparently betrayed them to Voldemort. Spoiler
Plot
alert, he
twist.
didn't. Yeah. And Sirius is also Harry's godfather. Professor Lupin privately teaches Harry to defend himself against Dementors using the aforementioned Patronus charm.
So then, Harry, Ron, and Hermione witness Buckbeak's execution. Again, he's the hippogriff, that big bird. And Ron's pet Scabbers, who we really haven't talked about up until this point, happens to be in Ron's hand during that scene, bites Ron and escapes. So Ron chases him, and this large dog appears and drags both Ron and Scabbers into this hole in the Whomping Willow, which was that big tree during the second film that Ron's dad's car gets stuck in and then attacks Ron and Harry and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, this hole leads to an underground passage leading to the Shrieking Shack, which is this house in Hogsmeade. So the trio discovers that the dog is actually Sirius Black, who's an animagus. Oh my gosh, why can't I say it? Animagus.
I had no idea that's one of those words I had no idea how to say when I read the books.
I don't listen in the movie. He's an animagus, which means that he can change into an animal. Lupin arrives and embraces Sirius as an old friend, which confuses everyone, and he admits to being a werewolf, which Hermione had figured out before anyone else because she's Hermione. Of course. Mm-hmm. And Lupin explains that Sirius is innocent. Sirius was falsely accused of betraying the Potters to Voldemort and murdering 12 Muggles, which is non-magic folk, or all of us, and their mutual friend Peter Pettigrew. It is then revealed that Scabbers the rat, which is Ron's rat, is actually Peter Pettigrew. Poosh, another plot twist. And he's also an animagus. And he's the one who actually committed the crime that Sirius was accused of. And he's the one that actually betrayed Harry's parents. Mm-hmm. So after forcing Peter to transform back into a human, Lupin and Sirius prepare to kill him. But Harry's like, nah, man, don't do it. Just give him to the Dementors. That's much worse. So after the group leaves the Shrieking Shack and leaves the tree, the full moon rises and Lupin starts to turn into a werewolf. And Sirius transforms into a dog to fight him off, and in the chaos, Pettigrew turns back into a rat and escapes. And Sirius and Harry are attacked by Dementors, and Harry sees a figure in the distance that saves them by casting a powerful Patronus spell that repels all of the Dementors. And he believes that mysterious figure is his dad, who's dead, and then he passes out because he's like, oh my gosh, it's my dad. He awakes to discover that Sirius has been captured and is sentenced to death by the Dementor's kiss, which the Dementor's kiss sucks out your soul. So it's very dramatic.
It's not nice. I just realized how big a chunk I gave you there to read. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I did a really good job.
Acting on Dumbledore's advice, and we're almost done here, Harry and Hermione, this is where it gets real weird, travel back in time 3 hours. Turns out Hermione was given a time turner, a necklace, basically, that allows you to travel back in time, and was using it to get to lessons all year because she's taking literally every class offered to third years. So they use the time turner to go back and repeat the last 3 hours. They managed to both save Buckbeak, the Hippogriff, and Sirius. The present Harry now realizes that it was not his father that conjured the Patronus to scare away the Dementors. It was, in fact, himself that did it. But from a distance, he thought it was his father. And as something that Harry hears in the book here for the first time and will hear very often, he looks very much like James, except for the eyes. He has his mother's eyes. Harry and Hermione rescue Sirius, who then escapes on Buckbeak the Hippogriff. Lupin resigns once Snape announces to the whole school that he is a werewolf, and Sirius sends Harry a firebolt, which is the best broomstick money can buy, and Harry flies off into the credits.
Okay, so that summary was very long but necessary.
Here, I brought my DVD back out again too. So
yeah, look at that
that's
drama.
The Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, it's very. They really put the fan on Harry's hair in that one.
Yeah,
that was,
Harry's just owning that pose. Look at him. He's been practicing.
We've got
the first movie.
There's Buckbeak, the Hippogriff, on the back.
Yep, so. That's what he looks like. He's huge too. Okay, All right. So in the comments, what'd you guys think of, okay, we're up to the third movie. I guess if you count Fantastic Beasts, which Brian and I would not, but let's count it anyway. Out of the 4 that we've watched so far, which one is your favorite? Let us know in the comments right now. Also, welcome to Susanna. It's her first time watching. I'm sorry that you had to come in during the summary because that's like the least interesting part of this. But yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And welcome to John, because I did not see you come in while we were talking. Oh no, I'm gonna do the burp. I always burp during one of these. Sorry. Talk, Ryan.
And John is actually in Diagon Alley, so he's not even watching anymore. But when he watches this later, I hope you have fun. We are both jealous of you. This movie specifically is interesting. Both the book and the movie actually kind of start to turn at this point. And this was, movie-wise, this is when you hear a lot of people mention as their favorite movie. And of the first 3 movies and books, I think it's very far in the lead as the best one. As far as the book goes, this is where it starts to turn dark. The Dementors are literally fear personified. They make you relive your darkest moments. They feed off of people's fears and misery. So when you're in their presence, it's very, very hard to think of anything except the worst things that have happened in your life. The reason we find out that Harry passes out when he's in the presence of the Dementors is because he had such a dark childhood. What he hears is his mother screaming, and eventually, at least in the books, starts to hear his father resisting Voldemort, then his mother, then Voldemort casting the curse. So it's a lot for a 13-year-old to go through every time he sees one of these. And the movie this is the first time they've had a different director. First 2 were directed by Chris Columbus, who is, he's fine. He did a fine job with both of them. This one we're on Alfonso Cuarón, who went on to win an Oscar for Gravity, and has done quite a few very good movies. And I personally think you can see the difference pretty quickly in the style of the movie, but it's shot much darker, which it should be and everything. But this is this was this is the first of the films that I watch and am really impressed by the way it's shot. Like the others I like just because I really like Harry Potter, but this one is really impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely like more casual as far as they're in street clothes more often. Yeah. They're not really in their uniforms. And I don't know, I feel like the movie as a whole is way more cohesive. I feel because there's so much information in the first 2 movies and 2 books trying to figure out what Harry Potter is all about. They just show it. The whole movie, the first 2 movies is just a bunch of clips trying to understand, which you just can't unless you've seen the book. So whether that's because you're trying to figure out what Harry Potter's all about or because of the director, I don't really know. But this movie just seems more cohesive and it just transitions much nicer.
One of the things I like at, and I said, you can immediately notice some of the differences. It starts off, well, like Angela said, I mean, they jump right into it. I mean, there is no preamble in this movie. It starts off with Harry practicing. I really, really like the opening scene of this where before the title sequence, you kind of zoom in on Privet Drive and the Dursleys' house, and you can hear Harry practicing a spell, which is Lumus Maximus, which I don't know if that's even a spell. It's like a really bright, apparently an extra bright light, which I don't think ever gets used again. So, but besides that, you hear him practicing this spell, and it zooms in, and he's under his bed sheet, and you can see the light kind of coming and going. And then his Uncle Vernon comes in, and he pretends he's asleep, and then he walks back out, and as he does it, it's a bright flash, which transitions right into the title sequence, which I thought was a pretty good setting. But yeah, like you said, they're not allowed to do magic outside of school, which he gets in trouble for all the time. So
I know it becomes like a big deal in the books. But apparently he can do magic right before school. So
I have this in my notes later, actually, too. The underage magic thing, and specifically how they track it. It's called the trace later in the books, for under 17s doing magic, is real inconsistent. Like how all of that works
in the movies,
but in the books too. Like sometimes they can tell exactly who did it, and then they specifically say they can't tell who did it. They can just tell where it's been done. So
you're right. Hermione fixing Harry's glasses before school starts and all that stuff.
Yeah, in Diagon Alley, which is not at school, and it's all over the place. So
anyway, I guess we're getting on a tangent. What do you guys think of Aunt Marge? I think she was perfectly cast. Plus, they used the lady who was the Trenchbull in Matilda, so like she's good at playing like evil towards children characters. So I think she was perfectly cast. She did a really good job. And she does a good job at making, like a supporting character big, which I've mentioned before in previous Facebook Lives. Is I think that shows how good of an actor you are when you can take a small part and make it big. And that's what she did. Because she wasn't really on screen for that long at all. She's in the book longer. So I thought that she was really good.
And it gets downright painful in the book. She's so unnecessarily cruel to Harry that for a while, and I think the idea is that it pays off more than when he blows her up, but not explodes her, but expands her. But they keep saying in the book that he blew up his aunt, which I always find funny.
Now, Don is saying, Brian, that at Universal Orlando allows you to immerse yourself in Harry Potter, especially Azkaban. Now, you've never mentioned Azkaban at Universal Orlando. Can you talk about that?
I don't think it's as much the Hogsmeade, the original Wizarding World that's in Islands of Adventure, is set at the time of Goblet of Fire, which is the next book. So we'll talk a lot about that next time. And then Diagon Alley is set kind of in the 7th, 8th movie range. I think 8th movie actually is technically, but I mean the timelines are all over the place because
it kind of has to be.
But it's that one's set more north. But there are definitely quite a few elements that we first see in
just like the pictures of Sirius.
The pictures of Sirius, the frog choir when we first go to Hogwarts, which I love. I love the super creepy music, some of what they use in this. The part where they're fighting the boggart with Remus Lupin in the classroom, and he puts that record, like the kind of old timey record, on the.
Oh yeah.
I really like the way, but the frog choir, there is an actual frog choir show that you can see at the Wizarding World,
know that.
where there's people, there's team members dressed in the robes that are holding frog, like frog puppet kind of things. That so that's part of it. The night bus, we might as well get into. Oh, actually, one thing before we leave Privet Drive. One of my favorite shots in this movie actually is right after Aunt Marge floats away. And they play kind of almost circusy music during it, which I think part of that is to tell the audience, especially the younger members of the audience, that like this isn't super serious. Like it's not, she's not dying here. Like it's okay. And she floats up, and Vernon and Petunia are out in the yard screaming, and Vernon drops to his knees, and as he does, they pull back into the house, and the music cuts off and you can hear a TV program. And as it pulls through, Dudley is just standing looking at one of 2 TVs he has, because it's Dudley and he has TVs all over the place. And he's just standing there stuffing his face with something as the camera moves through the house, and you see Vernon in the background like screaming to the heavens and stuff, which I think is a really, really funny transition from chaos into the Dudley just not caring even a little bit what happened.
That's kind of his childhood though. Like he spent so much of it being spoiled that like he just doesn't really care about much anymore. He's like, he has it all, so he's like, whatever. And he kind of grows up to be like that too, surprisingly.
A little bit. But so anyway, so the next scene is on the night bus. Night bus is this giant purple I think it's a triple decker. I don't
Wow.
remember but you can see it outside of Diagon Alley in the London waterfront area. So
Ooh.
it's basically your only hint at the Wizarding World when you're standing outside of that area. It's really, really well done, to the point that every once in a while they will have team members standing there telling guests where Diagon Alley is, because it's not super easy to find the entrance, which is always unfortunate when they have someone there, because it ruins a little bit of the surprise. But
Yeah.
I guess if you can't find it, then but yeah, so they have a fountain, and they have the London Red phone booth, and there is a front to the Leaky Cauldron, although that's not actually where the entrance is. I think there's a record store there, but yeah, out front they have the giant purple night bus, and it is staffed by a Stan Shunpike, who does a sort of London a Londony accent, and the shrunken head, the reggae head, which is not present in the books, no, but a very big part of this scene in the movie. It's the one that talks to the driver and everything, and that is there and can talk. So that's fun. I've never actually done the interaction myself, because there's always been at least a few people in line, but I've watched them quite a bit, and that's really fun, and that is definitely something that you might only see it in this film. I don't remember it. The night bus comes back once in the book, but I don't remember if they use that in the movie. It would be the 7th movie, I think. So, but I don't know.
Oh, I think Don is leaving. Thanks for joining us, Don. I hope we see you again sometime. Yeah, I remember actually watching that part in the theater, and I remember thinking that Stan's voice was similar to how she wrote it out in the book. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the dangling head, I remember really wondering, like, why is this even in here? This doesn't add much.
No, I don't love it either. But...
I don't like it, but I liked Ern. I thought Ern was really funny. Mm-hmm. I loved his big glasses, and he looks like the guy from the Pixar shorts, the one that plays chess and like fixes Woody in Toy Story 2. I don't know. If we're crossing worlds, that's just who he reminds me of. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was a well done scene overall, and I thought it was very exciting. And like you brought up earlier, just in general, I really like jazz music. And so whenever a movie incorporates jazz music of any kind, I just really, really love it. And then I really want the soundtrack. So this was the first movie that we had seen in a Harry Potter film that really incorporated jazz. And so whenever there was a Lupin scene, they did that. And then in Fantastic Beasts, that was very jazz heavy because that was set in the 1920s. So from a music standpoint, I really enjoyed that.
Rewatching the night bus scene, I was thinking, like, I wonder how many times Universal considered doing an attraction just based on that. Like, it looks very much like the Race Through New York with Jimmy Fallon attraction that they opened last year, or the Fast and Furious attraction that they opened this year, where you could use a moving car and then video screens to simulate going very quick. Like, it just looks like that type of thing. And I was just wondering how many times when they were developing Hogsmeade, they considered doing that.
Well, and since I haven't been there, I don't know this answer, but how much more room do they have to expand the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in both parts?
Not much, without taking away other things, which has been rumored for quite a while. The Diagon Alley, I think, would be a little bit easier, because there is like the Fear Factor live show is right next to it, and doesn't really draw a ton of people anymore. So, that's a decent amount of space. They could put something there at least. I think that's one of the rumored spots, the Ministry of Magic, which we won't see in the movies until the 5th one. But they, I think that's one of the rumored spots for that. I'm sure there is some backstage areas, but that gets tricky. Over in Islands of Adventure, they took about half of what was the Lost Continent area, which actually was a really cool area, And part of that was taken up by Hogsmeade. And again, for years, there's been rumors that they're just going to take the rest of it. So, which I think might ultimately happen. But yeah, there's on where those lands are. I don't think there's a ton of space without just eating other things, which Universal will happily do. I mean, especially like Fear Factor Live. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people crying.
Well, yeah.
If that closes. So I think that one's eventually going to be gone. But there's also the what else is there? I forget. There's something else on the other side I can't think of now that is like that. Well, the Fast and the Furious attraction was built kind of close to that too, but so that obviously isn't going away soon.
Well,
but
let's stay talking about Universal a little longer. Danya was saying that she went on Forbidden Journey 8 times, and isn't that the one you said that made you want to vomit?
It did. If I went on it 8 times, I would literally die, I think. But
that would be me.
Yeah, and I mean it is. I know people. In fact, I think our boss Len for quite a while, always said that was the best attraction in Orlando. So,
well, now I have to do it. I just got to suck it up.
Yeah, I mean I don't like it mostly because it makes me terribly sick. If it didn't, then maybe I would be more open to it. I don't know, but I love Escape from Gringotts, which we probably really won't talk about until we get to movie 7, but or is that so? Yeah, or 8. That might be movie 8 actually. So that'll be towards the end, but we'll do. Oh, and she said that her 10-year-old who gets motion sick was able to do it. That's surprising. Although I know they've redone a lot of the video in there, and it's a lot sharper now. So. And I've heard that they have smoothed out some of the motion, so it could be not as bad now. That would be awesome. I hope so. Maybe
I'll test the theory.
I was going to say I might have to suck it up and ride next time just to see how I do. But towards the end of the day, so I don't have to shoot too many videos. Sick.
We kind of talked about this in a podcast episode as far as needing an unlimited express pass. If you are just doing the 2 Wizarding World of Harry Potter parks. And you thought that you didn't if you were just doing that. Do you think that still holds true? Because I know that Danya did Express Pass. Yeah, because that's all I plan on doing when I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helps, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I don't think you need it. If you don't have Express Pass, then I would definitely suggest getting there early. If you're staying on site, use the early entry. If not, get there as early as you can, or in the evening is a good time. Diagon Alley, especially, I found in the evenings tends to be much lighter than like mid morning or an afternoon. I was just looking. I'm looking at an overhead map of Universal Studios to see. It looks like they actually have some what's labeled as a human resources building, like right behind the Hogwarts Express. So they could probably take that. On the other side of it is literally an apartment complex, so that's not theirs.
No, so they can't do anything with that. Would you say to go straight to the big rides when you get there? Or explore first?
I think it depends on if there is an early entry and you can't use it, if you're not staying at one of the Universal hotels.
Which I'm not.
Yeah, then I would probably actually go elsewhere first because there's going to be buildup because the early entry it's not like Extra Magic Hours. Well, I guess it is kind of like Magic Kingdom's Extra Magic Hours where only Fantasyland is open. Okay. So at Universal Studios Florida, it's Escape from Gringotts, Despicable Me, and Revenge of the Mummy, I think, are the things that are open. And at Hogsmeade, it's really only Forbidden Journey. Is about the only thing that's open for that early entry hour. So everybody that came for early entry is going to be there. So if you get in line behind them, it's going to be long. You're better off waiting like an hour or two and then going on. So.
And my final question before we move on, can you make a touring plan for Universal Orlando?
You sure can.
Guess that's what I'll be doing after this. I already made one for Magic Kingdom, so I'm very excited. In case you don't know, and I think, Suzanne, since you said this is your first time joining us, I'm going to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in July, I believe, July 3rd. So if you're going to be there, please come say hi to me for the very first time. So I'm very excited, and I've been just like grilling Brian on all these things I need to do. And if there's any foods or drinks that you think I should try, please let me know and I will film that for you. As Brian can vouch for, I make very weird faces if I don't like something. So it's entertaining to say the least.
Yeah,
okay.
now I'm looking at the map of Islands of Adventure, and it looks like same thing. They have to take parts of the Lost Continent. Actually, the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad stunt show is a pretty big stage and area, and it's right next to Hogsmeade train station. But the one thing I forgot to mention last time we did this with Chamber of Secrets, the Poseidon's Fury attraction there, if anyone's been on that there was a rumor for a while that they were going to turn that into a Chamber of Secrets, and if you've been in there, it's immediately apparent. Like, you walk through a tunnel of water that honestly, you put a couple snakes in there and it's basically the Chamber of Secrets entrance.
What are they waiting for?
Well, I think part of it because it's on the opposite side of the Lost Continent from where Hogsmeade is. So I think to do that, they'd almost have to figure out what to do in between too. Yeah. It's not right next to it, like, would be the easiest thing to do. But I think that's going to eventually happen. They're just going to take the rest of the Lost Continent there. On the other side is Jurassic Park, which all the hot rumors are that they were actually going to redo parts of Jurassic Park area for a new attraction based on like the newer movies. But
that is actually something I want to do while I'm there, because I do love a Jurassic Park. So I do want to, if you think those attractions are good, let me know, because I haven't done anything at Universal, you guys. Let me know.
I don't love the River Journey, which is the main one. It's really the only one. The other one is a kiddie ride, which you can't actually go on unless you have a kid with you. And it's not worth it anyway. But the River Adventure, I don't love it. It's a real simple film, but it's totally worth it for the first 5 minutes, because you start on the water in this nice calm water, and then you get to the actual Jurassic Park gates, and they open as the music plays, and there's dinosaurs behind it, and it's worth just for that 30 seconds. The entire ride is worth it. I don't care. I don't care what the rest of it is.
I want to do it. Yeah. No, that's the reason I want to go.
Yeah. So anyway, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, huh?
Yeah, so we're clearly staying on task. Okay, before we move on, Amy said sea bands help her with motion sickness, and I'd rather do that than take Dramamine, because Dramamine makes me fall asleep, even the non-drowsy Dramamine. Plus, non-drowsy is just harder to find, and people are telling me butterbeer fudge, that's Danya. Dee said the butterbeer, and Harley said the pumpkin juice. All right, I'm going to try those. All right, Brian, you get us back on.
And Danya said, the ride with the 2 flyers, it's Pteranodon flyers, is one of the worst rides she's ever done, which, I concur. It's really nothing.
So just the river one.
Just the River Journey. Yeah, River Adventure, I think.
I'm writing this down.
I keep mixing the River Journey from the Navi River Journey and the Jurassic Park River Adventure.
There's too many rides.
Yeah. So anyway, now moving on, and we're still going to be talking about the theme parks here for a minute, because we are at the Leaky Cauldron with Harry. And this is as far as I can remember from the films, this is our best look really at the Leaky Cauldron, which is, in the books and movies, it is the kind of gateway into Diagon Alley. You literally have to go through it and out the back and, tap your wand on a certain brick to get into Diagon Alley.
Really?
Obviously, the theme park isn't not the theme park. I said in the movie and book. Jeez.
Sorry, I got really excited for a minute. No. Okay.
Again, rumors are that they were going to try to do that effect, but it was just for a throughput purpose. They couldn't get it. They couldn't get it to work right and fast enough. So in the theme park, you enter kind of just through a random fake storefront, which is overlapped a little bit. So as you walk through and around, all Diagon Alley opens. It's still really, really cool. But once you get into Diagon Alley, immediately on your left is the Leaky Cauldron, and it looks remarkably like the Leaky Cauldron in The Prisoner of Azkaban. It's a little bit wider, of course, because it's a quick service dining place, so you have to be able to fit more than 40 people in it. Yes, it is. It's actually pretty. All the dining in both Wizarding Worlds is pretty good. It tends to be very, English authentic, bangers and mash and things like that. But I like that stuff, and it's done well. And that's not all they have. I mean, there are other things, but it looks a lot like this Leaky Cauldron. There's no rooms upstairs like there is in that one, but at least not yet. Although Universal might be missing a trick there by charging people to stay at the Leaky Cauldron overnight. I would pay. Cool. I would pay like Star Wars hotel money, I think, to do that.
You really would? Mm-hmm. I'd do that to stay at Hogwarts.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you could sleep. Speaking of, we're going through a lot of Harry Potter rumors today. That's been another one for a long time, is actually theming a part or an entire hotel to Harry Potter, which I'm honestly
That's
shocked
a missed opportunity to not be doing that.
And I wonder now if they're looking at the Star Wars hotel and thinking, oh geez, like maybe this is, instead of like the Ministry of Magic, maybe this is what we should do, is like knock down the whatever show, the Sinbad show, and put up like another building where we replicate like Hogwarts dorms and, let people into Hogsmeade, because that would, that it's printing money, I think.
Do you know how far people would travel just to do that and do it, that immersive experience like they're doing with the Star Wars hotel?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
What? And that's like $2,000 for 4 days for a family of 4, 3 days for a family of 4.
Yeah, I mean, for that's the expected pricing is probably in the range of $1,000 a night or something.
I mean, you can make bank off of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And have add-ons where you can buy the robes, and you can buy, like, who wouldn't, if you're doing it already, why wouldn't you also buy robes and everything too?
And like Danya said, with the interactive wands, you're already buying it to use around the parks, and then you have it inside the building. Can you imagine what you could do inside the hotel room? Like if you could use the wand to turn on the water in your sink or something like that, it'd just be so neat.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, so I don't know. Excited. Hopefully they're revisiting that, because that would be incredible. But let's see, the Monster Book of Monsters shows up here, which is the book that we find out later Hagrid, of course, assigned them, which is a book about monsters that is also a monster itself. You can, of course, buy those at the Wizarding World. Mm-hmm. I don't think they move or anything. They have display ones that do, but I think the regular ones are just furry and have the face on them. I don't know if I've ever actually played with those. We meet Crookshanks for the first time. Mm-hmm. You actually, in the book, you go with Hermione into Magical Menagerie, the pet store, pretty much, to buy Crookshanks. And the Magical Menagerie is at Diagon Alley at the Wizarding World, and you can buy stuffed versions of Crookshanks and Hedwig and Fawkes the Phoenix, who we met in Chamber of Secrets. And in the windows there, like all the windows, they're awesome. And they have moving, animals and things that do various things. And I believe that's one of the interactive wand spots there too. Crookshanks is not technically full cat. He is half Kneazle. A Kneazle is a magical creature that are kind of cat-like. They look kind of like the, I don't know cat breeds very well, but they almost like the hairless kind of pointy-eared ones. But they are very intelligent and can be violent towards untrustworthy people. So the Ministry of Magic has banned them from ownership because of their violent tendencies. But if they are crossbred with cats, then they are allowed. But that explains why Crookshanks is so smart. Especially in the books, he actually has a fairly large part in trying to kill what turns out to be Peter Pettigrew. Yeah. So, and like you mentioned, the posters that we see with Sirius Black screaming, you see those everywhere, but both as posters, not always screaming. There are some interactive ones where they move. But there's like t-shirts. When you go into the Borgin and Burke's shop in Nocturne Alley, which we talked about last time, you can buy a lot of like, have you seen this wizard shirts, things like that they have. So, like I said, a lot of stuff from this movie that shows up or that we see for the first time in here. So
let's talk about Remus Lupin, who is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Mm-hmm. Also was Harry's dad's one of his best friends and Sirius's best friends. I really like him. Yeah. He's a werewolf, aka werewolf. I really, really like him. He plays a pretty big role in the books.
His furry little problem, they call it.
We don't really talk about that. Yeah, he gets a bigger role in the books. He was a character I was really sad to see leave at the end of this story. And, you know, when I first read it, I'm like, oh, is that the end? Is he gone now? He's not. You'll see him again.
No, you will see him. You'll see him in the movies, and yeah, like you said, he plays a big. He plays a pretty big part in the books, and he's actually one of my, not my favorite character, but he's definitely in the top rank of characters. For whatever reason, I really like.
You get attached.
I really like Remus Lupin. Yeah.
Yeah. You get attached to him and Sirius, and probably because, you know, since Harry's dad isn't there, they become, you know, his father figures. So that's probably one of the reasons. And,
you know, so does Sirius, which, you know, at the end of this movie, he asks Harry, of course, if he will come live with him, you know, and not have to go back to the Dursleys, which this is, again, not really a spoiler. Harry wouldn't have been able to live with him either way for magical reasons. But because his name isn't cleared in the movie, because Peter Pettigrew gets away, he can't, you know, he's got to go back on the run. So
it doesn't work out. But the Dementors, yes, very creepy. They were beyond what I could have imagined while reading the books. They were done so well. And I think that they were almost overly dramatic. When Harry is on the train and then they come onto the train, they almost start kind of sucking his soul out right away, which, you know, like, that wasn't really supposed to happen in the book. So yeah, overly dramatic, but they were so well created. I thought that was perfect.
They look, the part where they're on the train and it's that kind of slow build up. It gets dark, and then everything starts to freeze up, and it freezes around Ron's hand on the window, and then you see the kind of floating robe come in, and then that
it's all creepy, tattered and
that
dark.
Creepy hand like come around the edge. It's very, very. It's a horror movie like in the way it's shot. But yeah, the way, and I think they were probably having trouble visualizing the when you're in the presence of a Dementor, it feels like you'll never be cheery again, as Ron says. And I think they were having trouble visualizing that, so they kind of did that sucking thing off of people's...
Like it's sucking the life out of you.
But yeah, it's a strange thing, because that's the same thing they use basically for the kiss later. When so it almost makes it seem like they're trying to take everybody's soul like immediately, which doesn't quite make sense. So D asks in the comments here, what is everyone's favorite character in Prisoner of Azkaban? And I'm very curious to see what everybody says. But Angela, what is yours? Is it just going to be Hagrid again? Oh, okay.
No, mine is Ron. Ron is hilarious in this. Like, especially when he gets hurt and his legs hurt, and he's like sitting there with Hermione. And she's like, oh, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I think they might have to chop it. Like, he's being so like, oh, it really hurts.
In the book, he gets his leg like very violently broken.
Like they're just like,
is a little
he's
much.
Like mauling his leg. Yeah.
My favorite, I think, in the movie at least, is Dumbledore. This is, I know we mentioned it last time, Richard Harris, the actor that played Dumbledore in the first two movies, passed away in between shooting of the films. So this is Michael Gambon's first run as Dumbledore, and he will finish out the rest of the films as Dumbledore. And I have some problems with his Dumbledore in Goblet of Fire, which I'm sure I will
He gets
mention.
very aggressive.
He's very angry, which is not Dumbledore. But in this one, I think he plays it as a really, really, like a real weirdo, which I think is exactly how I read Dumbledore in the books, as a really, really brilliant old wizard that also might be insane. And I mean, they mention it many times, like Ron, Fred, and George especially talk quite a few times in the books about like, well, yeah, Dumbledore is kind of crazy, you know. And I think I love right at the end when, after using the time turner, when they're getting back in and they run up to him and say, "We did it," and he just goes, "Did what? Good night," and walks down the stairs. It makes me laugh every time.
Well, and Harley likes Hermione when she punches Draco.
Oh, of course, yes.
And and Holly also pointed out that the Dementor, like when everything freezes, is on the Hogwarts Express, which you did talk about.
It's sort of. They do on. And the video I did from Diagon Alley to Hogsmeade, they didn't do it, and it could just be that it wasn't that cycle, or it could be that they do it the other way. But I have seen it before, and it's, I don't know if they do the freeze effect or not. I can't remember, but they definitely have parts where the Dementor glides by as a shadow on the window, and the lights go down a little bit as it glides by, and it's, I imagine it's not super great with small children, but.
And did I say Holly's was Snape dressed as Neville's grandmother?
I don't. No, you didn't. I love
it. She liked that.
Dee
liked Sirius Black. I linked our podcast, and I was also going to link Brian's Hogwarts Express video too, if you want to keep talking, Brian.
Let me see. I like in the film. I like how there's a whole sequence where they go up to the dorm, the Gryffindor dorm. And the fat lady is singing and trying to break a glass with her voice, and makes them wait for 45 seconds, and eventually just screams and then smashes the glass and says she did it. And then right after that, they go in, and it's the scene where they're eating candies that make you sound like animals. And I enjoy those scenes that we have a few of in this movie that we didn't really have in the first two, that are just, it's a wizard school. They should be doing weird kind of fun stuff like this that I don't think they do enough of. I know we've talked before about the first two movies being a lot of like just kind of highlights of the books. This is one where I think they do a good job of trying to establish, like, no, these are people, that are here now. Not a lot. I mean, we focus mostly on our normal crew, but
they do play around with magic.
Yeah, I like little things like that aren't just cutting to the next scene immediately. And this is another big one. We get introduced to the Marauders Map in this movie, which will be important for the rest of the series.
I really loved this part in the book, and that actually was my favorite part of the book, as far as Harry getting the map from Fred and George, and then going through the secret passage into Honeydukes.
Honeydukes, yeah.
That was my favorite part, and oh my gosh, I still think about that. It's just my favorite part of the book.
So this is the insert actually of the DVD, but they have kind of the Marauders Map on there.
Can you buy the Marauders Map too?
Oh, of course you can. Yeah.
I'm surprised you don't have it.
I don't have a lot. I'm not a big buyer of stuff like that unless I have somewhere to put it. So as you can see, I don't have the typical video shelves behind me full of stuff. Like if you ever see one of Guy Selga's videos, when Guy is at his house, he has an amazing collection of stuff, and I don't. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have to work on that. But
I do want to do that. I'm just lazy.
They also have some pretty cool Marauder Map themed shirts and things that say, I solemnly swear I'm up to no good, and things like that are cool. Marauders Map it is literally a map of Hogwarts and the grounds that also it is enchanted to show you where everyone is on the grounds. Obviously you could see how Harry would use that very well. It turns out, we find out in this, it was created by his father and his friends, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, which is crazy. I feel like that that these under 17s created this flawless map of
that took
Hogwarts,
some legit magic to put together,
and figured out how to become animagi.
Anime guy, yeah.
And I think they say in the book they did it by their 5th year. They learned how to transform into animals. So they may be the best students that have ever, short of Dumbledore probably, that have ever been at Hogwarts. But, I guess maybe they were. I don't know. Or maybe everybody can figure out how to do this stuff and they just don't try. I don't know.
Well, you could say the same about Fred and George. I mean, brilliant that they could figure out. It's like they're using their magic
stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Brilliant. They're just not using it for good, like maybe Dumbledore did when he was a student.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will get to that.
But you mentioned Honeydukes. We see Hogsmeade for the first time. Hogsmeade is the village in Islands of Adventure. It was the first Wizarding World where the first village, and then Hogwarts Castle, which is where the Forbidden Journey attraction is. Hogsmeade we do see again, and we get better looks at in future movies. But I think, as far as I know, it's definitely in future books. And I know we see the Three Broomsticks later on. I'm pretty sure we see more of Hogsmeade. In this one, it's kind of hard to see because it is totally snow-covered. So you really just see like some signs on the tops of buildings. You also, they go into the Three Broomsticks, Harry does, but he goes almost right upstairs to like a room.
You barely see
so
it.
you don't really see the inside of it at all.
It just looks like a pub.
Yeah, so we'll see more of that later. But all of that stuff, Honeydukes is in Hogsmeade at Islands of Adventure. We do see the Shrieking Shack in this, but that is not at Universal. They don't have a Shrieking Shack.
Well, how would they show that, really? It's such a small room, basically. It's not
even
I
was thinking more like, I don't know, for those who had been at Universal Studios Florida a while ago when they used to have the Bates Motel there, and it was just kind of up on a hill. It was, I don't know, I think it was meant as a set or something like that. It's over where... I don't remember. I think it's where like the Woody Woodpecker coaster is, that area now, maybe. But I was almost thinking just something like that isn't anything except it's just in the distance, like Beast Castle almost at New Fantasyland, where they kind of build a fake hill in the back and put a little Shrieking Shack on it, and it just, the forced perspective of it kind of just looks like it's far away. I'm almost a little surprised they didn't do that, but it could have just been that they don't have the space to do it and couldn't get it to look right.
At the time, or
yeah, you never know. Yeah. Now I think they have an unlimited budget for Harry Potter stuff. It's brought them so many
people. They'll make it work.
Yeah, but you're right. Hogsmeade was a little bit of a risk at the time. Not turned out to be no risk at all. But
worked out fine. John is listening from Monsters Cafe.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Thank you for joining us. And Shack might be coming too as a new attraction.
Interesting.
That
would be cool.
Good to know.
I was actually thinking like they have the because he takes the passage from Honeydukes up like into the castle, and I was thinking, man, like that would be awesome if they started doing either as like a VIP entrance or something, where you actually entered through like Honeydukes and took like a secret tunnel over to ride Forbidden Journey. Would just be a crazy like little thing. It would be impossible to build. Not impossible, but it would be cost prohibitive to build now, but it would have been one of those
type thing.
Yeah, it would have been one of those funny things like when they first put it in. Well, but the only reason the utilidors work is because they built above ground, because you can't dig in Florida.
You have that foresight.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Time Turner.
Okay.
So with the Time Turner, it was hardly explained in the movie.
It's not really explained in the book either, other than that it allows you to go back in time.
Yeah,
which seems like it would have been handy a lot.
They should have used it like throughout the movies or in
the
the books.
All in the fifth book. They all, like the end of the fifth book, they all get smashed. We find out. I think in the sixth book we find that out. But up until then, I feel like they seem dead useful.
I know, and Hermione, the whole thing is like she keeps popping up randomly throughout the whole year, and they're like, "Oh, when did you get here?" And she's like, "Oh, I've been here the whole time," and it keeps happening. And Harry and Ron like aren't suspicious at all. They don't ask any questions. They're like, "Oh, here she is."
They're just like, "What happened? I thought she was right behind us," and just repeatedly.
I know, and they just don't care. They're like, "Oh, girls, whatever."
It has been established that Harry and Ron are not the smart ones. So
no, they don't pay attention at all. But basically what Hermione was using was a time turner so that she could take extra classes. So while she was in divination, she was also taking like, astronomy or whatever. So she could take 2 classes at a time. And she got this approved through Professor McGonagall and through Dumbledore. And so they end up using this at the end of the movie to then save Sirius Black and Buckbeak, which we talked about in the summary. And, I mean, it's really cool how it worked. And the Time Turner itself, it was really well done. It's just basically like, the little sand timers.
And I believe you can buy Time Turners at Wizarding World also.
Yeah, they would make really cool necklaces if you were into the long dangling ones. Yeah, they're really neat. That's basically all I really wanted to say about him.
I keep wondering, like, because I love time travel plots, and even though like they mess with your brain quite a bit, but I was wondering like how often Hermione used it during the school year, because they imply, especially in the books, that she was using it like 2 or 3 times a day to redo lessons. So is she like a year older than everybody else now?
Well, and is she using them
Because she just kept redoing hours?
Is she getting
over and
extra
over again?
sleep too? Like, is she
Yeah, why
sleeping?
not? Like,
I mean, I would.
stay
You're
up and
doing extra classes.
stay up and study all night, then turn it back 6 hours and go to sleep.
I know, but then like, what if someone was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go grab something," and then she's sleeping in her dorm? But then they're like, "No, she's supposed to be in class right now." I don't know how it works. John said the time turner rules change after the books. I don't know about this.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean there either, John. But
I haven't read The Cursed Child, or I don't know about this on Pottermore, so I can't vouch for it.
I don't tend to do a lot of the other stuff. I'm the same way with Star Wars. Like, I've never really read the Star Wars books or anything like that. But but yeah, I mean, it would make sense if they kind of came out and fixed some of that, because it really introduced something that could have been. I almost feel like it should have been like something that was just invented and then they destroyed it at the end of this movie or something, just so that it didn't come up again. Because there's one particular part of Goblet of Fire, the next book, that I feel like if they could have redone, would have been super helpful.
Which we'll get to in, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Always keep the thing by me.
Let me see. Oh, one thing that they don't mention in the movie that actually comes up quite a bit, but they the way that Peter Pettigrew actually like betrayed Harry's parents, in the movie they just say that like he sold them out to Voldemort, like, and it's not really said how. It's just kind of implied, like, oh, he told him where they were, whatever. The way it actually worked, it's something called a Fidelis charm that will actually come up again in Order of the Phoenix, and they don't mention it in Order of the Phoenix either. But it involves making putting a secret in a living person. So you assign, someone becomes a secret keeper, it's called, and if they don't tell you their secret, you cannot find it out. So Lily and James Potter were hidden from Voldemort because they knew he was after them, actually after Harry specifically. But and it was believed that Sirius Black was their secret keeper because he was their best friend and their best man in the wedding and Harry's godfather and all that stuff. So under that, if Sirius didn't tell Voldemort where they were, he, as it is explained in the book, he could be staring in through their front window and wouldn't be able to see them. So when Voldemort finds them, obviously everybody assumes, oh, Sirius gave up the secret. He was the secret keeper. What nobody else knows except for Sirius and Peter Pettigrew is that they switched secret keepers at the last minute, thinking that no one would assume Pettigrew was it because he was this little mousy, pun intended, boy, and it turns out he was working as a spy for Voldemort already, and immediately went and told Voldemort where they were, and that's how he found out. I just thought it was, and I understand why you don't, I mean, it's very complicated, magic. It's easier just to say, yeah, he's whatever, he sold them out. But I think it's a fun wrinkle, and it explains a little bit more as to why no one knew, why everyone thought Sirius did it, because even Remus Lupin didn't know they had changed secret keepers because they knew there was a spy and they were actually suspected Lupin was it. So they didn't tell him, they didn't tell Dumbledore, they didn't tell anybody that they had switched. So that's why everybody for years thought Sirius was the one who sold them out.
So that's the behind the scenes story, in case you were wondering. And do you want to talk about Snape a little bit? Do you think that's important?
Not really. I think I'm going to make a case towards the end of these movies that Snape is not a particular good guy. As you know, if you're following along with these movies, you will already think he is not a good guy. But I think there are some parts of this where he just especially in the book, he just becomes unhinged. When they're in the shack, he basically wants to kill Sirius immediately because they were enemies at school. When Hermione starts asking questions, he literally just screams at her, "Shut up, you stupid girl." After Sirius escapes, he legitimately goes insane to the point that Cornelius Fudge says, "I don't think that guy is right," in the book, and screaming. They helped him escape, I know it, and only Dumbledore basically has to send him out of the room. He's bullies Neville, an additional part in the book that is just cruel. I occasionally will point some of these things out so that when we get to the end and you are all arguing against me, which you will be by the end, that
Brian will be by himself fighting against
Snape.
I
will use all of these points as further. I also thought it was interesting, actually, speaking of things from the book, almost every book ends with Harry and Dumbledore talking. And this movie was one where they decided just to not do that, which I kind of like the choice, except that Dumbledore always has some of the best lines in all of these movies. He has one that he's talking about when Harry thought it was his father, and Harry's a little bit disappointed, actually, that it wasn't some form of his father, because obviously he wants to know him. And, he says, "You think the dead we have loved ever truly leave us. You think that we don't recall them more clearly than ever in times of great trouble. Your father is alive in you, Harry, and shows himself most plainly when you have need of him." Which is one of those great Dumbledore lines that I always enjoy that they didn't use in the movie. So
Brian was really disappointed. That's why he had to write out that quote. But Brian always leaves us with really good quotes and conclusions to end these
Dumbledore
streams. Yeah. These good Dumbledore quotes that really end it on a good note. And
as Dee hints at, Dumbledore's motives later get a little cloudy, which I also I guess I also can relate to. So,
and as she also said, that Snape's true motivation also kind of comes out towards the end of the sixth book. So,
it's the very end of the last book, basically, when we find out what Snape has been doing the whole time. But I don't talk too much about that.
It really is towards the very end. It's very lengthy, but we can't. So, we're only on the third book. We got so much more to talk about.
We might. I'm very glad they split the last movie into 2 parts, because it is definitely going to take us 2 parts to discuss all the Snape and Dumbledore stuff at the end.
I mean, it's already been over an hour, and we just talked about the third.
Yeah, and I got to go pick my kids up in 20 minutes. So,
well, I think we'll end things here. Thank you so much for watching. Next week we will do, at some point, one of us will do a Disney chat.
Yeah, we missed it last week. Sorry.
Yes, we will. I know. Yeah. We're so good at this. I know. But in the meantime, check out our podcast episode. Hopefully that will give you your Disney fix, and check out our YouTube page, because we definitely talk Disney on there. All right.
Thank you very much for watching.
Have a good week. Bye, guys.
Expecto Patronum.